Hello, my name is Victor Caraballo and I am a teacher of biology in the Luis Vives College, and in this sample class I'm going to explain you the cells of the nervous system, the neurons and their connections. This presentation is going to be divided into what is the modern neuroscience, and then I'm going to explain you the nervous cells, the neurons and the connections between them, the synapses. It was in the late 1830s when Sladen and Swan proposed the cell theory. They state that every organism is made up of cells. The cell then was the unit, the functional and structural unit of life. But it was thought in that moment that the nervous system was an exception, because the nervous system was made up of a continuous net. It was in the late 19th century when the Spaniard Santiago Ramón y Cajal proposed that the nervous system was also made up of independent units. These independent units were called neurons. He proposed then the neuron doctrine, and he received the Nobel Prize in 1906. He was the first Spanish scientist that received the Nobel Prize in medicine or physiology. That was the onset of the modern neuroscience. It was thought that there was only the neurons in the nervous system, but it was not true, because later it was demonstrated that there was another set of cells. This other set of cells was glia. Glia is a set of cells that contain three groups. It's astroglia, microglia, and oligodendrocytes. The two main functions of these glia are to nourish and to protect the neurons. The neurons then are the main cells of the nervous system, and they have three main parts. The three main parts are the cell body, that is almost spherical because it contains a large amount of organelles and a big nucleus. Moreover, there are the dendritic tree or dendrites, and it's called dendritic tree because the shape is quite similar to the branches of a tree. And moreover, we can find on the neuron, on the opposite edge, what it's called the axon. Depending on the shape, we can classify the neurons by a morphological classification. But we can find another kind of classification, that is the functional classification or the anatomical location classification. In this sample class, we are only going to explain what are the morphological classification of the neurons. In this morphological classification, we can find the unipolar neurons, where the cell body is located in one side of the neuron and the dendrites and the axon is on the other. In the bipolar neurons, we can find the cell body in between the axon and the dendritic tree. And in the multipolar neurons, we can find the cell body enclosed by the dendritic tree, and in the opposite part of the cell body, it merges the axon. In the nervous system, there are more than 100 billions of neurons, and there are more than 100 trillions of connections between these neurons. These connections are called synapses, and these synapses we can find two kinds of synapses, the electrical synapses and the chemical synapses. The synapses are known as to be the part that regulates the main functions of the nervous system, that is, mainly the control of the movement, of the emotions and the reasoning. It is said that it's more important the number of connections than the number of neurons in order to control that functions. These two synapses can be the electrical synapse or the chemical synapse. In the electrical synapse, the two neurons are very close. That means they are almost in contact, and between the first and the second neuron there is a gap junction. This gap junction allows to transpass the impulse, the nerve impulse, the electrical nerve impulse from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron, then passing the message from the first neuron to the second neuron. In second type of synapse, the chemical synapse, the distance between the two neurons is quite bigger. That is called the synaptic cleft. The synaptic cleft is in between the presynaptic neuron, that is the one that is going to produce the message, and the postsynaptic neuron, that is after the synaptic cleft. That is the second neuron, postsynaptic neuron, is going to receive that message. The message is enclosed in the presynaptic vessels, and these presynaptic vessels are contained in the presynaptic neuron. This message is a neurotransmitter, it's a chemical, and these synaptic vessels are going to fuse with the presynaptic membrane and are going to be released these neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. These neurotransmitters in the synaptic cleft are going to travel from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron, and they are going to bind with the receptor. The receptor is embedded on the postsynaptic membrane. Then this neurotransmitter is going to produce a response and transmit a message to the second neuron. But the nervous system has evolved in order to produce one uptake pump. The function of the uptake pump is to avoid the high concentration of neurotransmitter in the synaptic cleft, because it has been demonstrated that a large concentration of these neurotransmitters on the synaptic cleft are producing an overexcitement of the postsynaptic neuron, probably leading to the death of that neuron. That is probably the onset of most of the well-known neurodegenerative diseases. Okay, that's only the tip of the iceberg on the neuroscience. I hope you enjoyed that sample class and you want to learn more about neuroscience. Thank you for your attention.